the rest of the season have been lackluster to put it mildly. They got that big 0 sitting there, and sort of a reminder of the 12-0 Buckeyes of 2 years ago, when there wasn't a postseason game to be played, and they looked anything but dominant, but they kept that 0 in the loss column all through the end of the year, and you had to look at them. And it turned out that year they were the only team with no losses out of all 126 FBS programs, in part because they didn't have to play a top-ranked team in a bowl game or a title game. But still, it's tough to go unbeaten. You got to hand it to Florida State. They did it, and they've got a game to play this week, and Georgia Tech is going to be no pushover. I would, if you've seen Georgia Tech play at all this year, they're a rugged team. They beat Georgia the other day, and they're going to give Florida State all they want. Lots of people are predicting a Georgia Tech victory.
That's funny. Charles in the chat room. That's a great point. 7 picks in 2 games. How do you not bench that man? Because quarterbacks are not allowed to throw interceptions in back-to-back games. They must be benched immediately. It's an unwritten rule. Oh, maybe it's because there's no flashy freshman sitting behind him. Is that what it is? There's no new toy to play with? Speaking of, when we're talking about the committee, Dan, I just wonder if they're allowed to take into consideration whether or not JT Barrett's absence makes the Buckeyes a playoff team or not. Can't they take into consideration whether or not 6 months from now FSU's record will be posthumously turned to 0-13 instead of the other way? I mean, can they take that into effect too? The fact that this season won't count 6 months from now when they throw it all out after all the NCAA violations come to light? Can they play that into their rules, or no? Are they not allowed to consider that?
Well, I know you asked the question only half in jest, but I think that. They're chartered with deciding who the best football teams in the country are right now. So
I know.
My guess would be no. They're not allowed to think about that. But you're right. We may be.
Where I'm going. Exactly.
Vacating is the word we use, J-Rock. We're going to vacate this Florida State season. We're going to unplay these games and let the record books lie to history.
It never happened. I love it. So anyways, but let's talk about those Buckeyes. Obviously, the big one right off the top when we're looking at the football side of the field is JT Barrett. He goes down. You knew right away when they went to commercial. I knew it. I said, I don't know if it's his knee or his ankle here, but when the cart's coming, that's no good. And you knew it, and it turned out broken ankle, had surgery, done for the season here, and now just like that. I mean, if not that there's a good place or a bad place in the season for that to happen, but I guess the end of the season would probably be on the list of bad places simply because you don't even have time to mess around and get the next man ready. He's just up, and he's got 7 days to play some football.
Yeah, it's funny. And Urban Meyer, he's such a refreshing change from sort of the coach speak that we had for the previous decade. No names, please. But, Urban Meyer talking about, putting the best face on the situation after the game. He says, well, one thing for sure is that he's going to get a lot of reps.
Yeah.
Cardale Jones, talking about Cardale Jones. One thing we know for sure, he's going to get a lot of reps. So that's the good side of what happened. The other thing is how he tells you after the game, kind of what the thinking was and the conversations that he had on the sidelines. He related the story of what was up 4th and 1 right near midfield and late in the game, Buckeyes up a touchdown. After JT Barrett had gone out, and he talking about calling the play, and they had this the play that they ran. Obviously, was a little reverse action to Ezekiel Elliott off the left side, and he looks at his offensive line coach Ed Warner square in the eye, and he says, "Can we make it?" And he said Warner never hesitated. He looked back and he said, "Yeah, we got this." And as it turned out, Elliott, takes it off tackle, and one half-hearted arm tackle by Jake Ryan was the only mitt that they got on him. And 44 yards later, he's in the end zone, and Buckeyes have a 2-touchdown lead, effectively put the game away. But I love the fact that Meyer relates those stories and to the media later about what their thinking was and conversations that he had with his assistant and that sort of thing. So that kind of put the wraps on it. And of course they added a defensive touchdown then a few plays later when Bosa sacks Gardner and Darren Lee picks up the ball and runs it in. So they did get a few style points there at the end, even though Michigan somehow, it's the game. So Michigan, one thing Hoke has done, and he was criticized after the game for, preparing his team for the Ohio State game, and forgetting about the other 11 games that he has to play. It looks like crap for 11 games. All of a sudden, he summons the best out of his players, and they actually have an offense that looks like a coherent offense against Ohio State. Last year, Buckeye pass defense was contributing greatly to that, but you got to give them credit. Michigan played well. They were in this game. They were tied.
They were ready.
Late in the third quarter, or mid third quarter, they were still tied with the Buckeyes. So they put out their best effort, and I'm surprised that Monday mornings, Sunday and Monday so far have come and gone without Brady Hoke being officially fired. But I think it's probably just a matter of timing at this point. But anyway, yeah, just heartbreaking to see Barrett go down. He was on the verge of, as you say, smashed a lot of records, but he was on the verge of, with 2, maybe 3 more games, putting them absolutely out of sight. So that won't happen. The same thing happened to Braxton when he was on the verge of breaking some of those same career marks for Ohio State. But there's not too many single season quarterbacking records for touchdowns or yardage or passing or whatever that are left standing after Barrett's season this year. And if nothing else, he can take some solace in that. And I understand the surgery went well this morning. I saw a photo of him on Twitter in his hospital bed.
Yeah.
And now, Jerry, we're dealing with Cardale Jones, and if you haven't already seen it, you're going to see it any number of times. His famous tweet from a couple of years ago. I think you probably know the one I'm talking about. Let me quote Cardale Jones's tweet from I don't know exactly how long ago it was, probably a couple of years. Here's what he said on Twitter. Why should we have to go to class?
Go to class, yes.
When we came here to play football, we ain't come to play school.
Yes.
Classes are pointless. We ain't come to play school. So that was Cardale Jones' tweet. I understand he's got his head turned around a little bit since then, and they've got him back in the classroom. And, I think they probably just padlocked his Twitter account after that. But anyway, this is the kid that's going to be playing quarterback for the Buckeyes for the next however long their season goes this year, either in a bowl game or in the playoff, plus the Big Ten title game this week. I think the Buckeyes are going to rise to the occasion. I really do. And Cardale, you'll see that Cardale Jones, not only is he a beast of a runner, but he has a big arm. They will be throwing the ball down the field. I don't think they're going to change it up a whole lot.
If you remember, Dan, at the beginning of the season,
I had told you last week that we were going to see Jalen Marshall take some snaps.
Yes.
In this game against Michigan, we saw that, although we didn't see it quite as much as I thought we might. But
there's that as well, though, too.
I think you're going to see some of that this week for sure. But you're going to see Cardale Jones' arm, and he has a big arm. He can throw the ball a mile.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, guys, that Cardale Jones, we're not talking about the typical third or fourth quarterback down on the depth chart that very rarely gets in there. I mean, in the beginning of the season, this was the guy people anticipated replacing Braxton Miller until, Meyer threw the curveball and said, no, you know what, we're going with the kid, and we think that this gives us some more options offensively and so on and so forth. But, Cardale Jones had been a part of that and had been expected there. So he's had some exposure. He's gotten, it's not like he's coming in completely cold, but so people forget, they go, what are they going to do? Well, that was the kid that was going to replace Braxton until plans changed, as is wont to happen from time to time. So he'll get a chance out there.
And Jones is a kid from Cleveland. He's a Glenville guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just saying with what you said about Marshall.
He got some playing time this year. He was in there, but almost every time he was into a game, it was one of those 66-0 routes, and Meyer wasn't letting him throw the football. So we saw him come in, and we'd see Cardale Jones run right, Cardale Jones run left, Cardale Jones hand the ball off to a backup running back, and that's really about all we saw of him. One game this year, he did throw 2 touchdown passes and looked pretty good doing it. I can't recall if it was the Kent State game or one of the other mismatches that they had where he was in late in the fourth quarter and they were letting him throw the ball a little bit. But like I said, arm strength, not a problem. We don't, he doesn't, obviously experience is the big factor here. He doesn't have it, and he doesn't have it, let alone in a championship type environment that we're going to be looking at in Indianapolis on Saturday night. But
looking at some of those stats,
going to be interesting.
Looking at some of those stats you mentioned, it was the Illinois game that you're referencing where he went 5 of 9, 82 yards, had 2 touchdowns in that game. Also ran the ball very well that game, 7 for 47, 6.5 yards on the ground. Just looking, even taking let's take the passing stats out of there because it's been very limited this season. But I think for the entire season, he's 10 of 17, 118 yards or something like that. But you look at the rushing statistics there and you see, I mean, he's clearly averaged 8, 9, 10 yards a carry on the ground here the times that he has had it. So he's going to be very effective there. And as you said, he's got the arm and some ability to go out there too. It's going to be interesting to see. And you mentioned Marshall because I mentioned him earlier earlier in the show. I even said that you saw a little bit of that and you may see a little more of him with that with the Wildcat. At first, that was the first play that they ran after the injury there, and they came back with it. I'm like, ooh, at first I wondered if there was like a reason why Cardale Jones did not immediately run the next play, but apparently they may have just been trying to, catch Michigan unaware there with what they were doing. But instantly I said, wow, they're going right to Marshall with the Wildcat here? But it was a one-play thing, and then they got Jones in there and went back to the standard offense.
Yeah, I think, and if my memory serves, I think they had Jones hand off on the first down play.
Yeah, you may be right about
that. And then split him out wide. Jones stayed on the field and ended up splitting out. And Jalen came in and took the snap. I think it was just to change things up a little bit and give him a different look.
How about Gardner with that play?
They love Jay putting the ball in Jalen Marshall's hands. I frankly couldn't understand why he didn't have more touches in that first half. The other day, but especially after coming off a 4-touchdown game. But I think we'll see more Jalen Marshall, and I was hoping, and they really did run the ball quite a bit more against Michigan than they had as a percentage of plays. They really relied on Barrett a lot and relied on Ezekiel Elliott a lot. And I thought that was a winning formula. I've been in favor of giving Elliott more carries and just kind of riding that horse because he's so
Same
good.
Here.
And Elliott again just showed what a phenomenal blocker he is. I love watching that kid on plays when he doesn't get the handoff because he just lays the wood on people. And showed it again the other day. Just a tremendous performance blocking when he wasn't toting the football.
Yeah, I like Zeke Elliott. I'm a big guy on him too, man. And when I saw the combination of those guys out there when they split Jones out wide, and you're right. You know what? I thought that was the first play. It was the second. I was talking to my son. I must have missed the first run and play on that drive. But the play that Michigan hit on when they scored their third touchdown, that's something that I could see. Wrinkles like that you get when you can get those athletic guys, even Jones being out there, whether it's split out or under center, was the touchdown pass to Gardner when they pulled the little trickeration there in the midway through the third quarter. And, but it opens up when you get those playmakers to put that ball in their hand, like Marshall, and being able to have Jones, who's such an athlete on top of being a quarterback, you really can open up some different possibilities.
Yeah, you're right. And teams have had success with those throwback plays against Ohio State. They are athletic. They do pursue hard. They let Bosa a couple times. Their whole play design was let Joey Bosa come in and we'll throw the ball over the top of him. They did that throwback play to Gardner, and he didn't score on it, but he got inside the 5, and they scored, I think, on the next play. But, Michigan State has had great success with that against the Buckeyes over the last couple of years. Michigan did it last year for a really long gainer early in the game, set up their first touchdown in the game last year. So I'm almost surprised that they waited as long as they did to kind of run some of that stuff. That throwback to Gardner, all those misdirection plays and throwback screens and things have worked so well against Ohio State that kind of surprised they didn't go to it earlier.
Yeah, and by the way, Gardner, much respect, not just for his play on the field. He did a good job being one of the only weapons, really, that they've got there to deal. Him going up, and of course the picture went viral over the weekend, but him going up there and reaching out to J.T. Barrett after the injury, good to see, too, especially because it's a rivalry game, and these kids get caught up in it just like anybody else. Sometimes they go too far with it, just like we've seen happen in the last few years even. But that was a very classy moment in the middle of something that was tragic, and in the weekend that it was in general, looking at the outside things Ohio State was dealing with as well. That was a classy touch by a Michigan player there.
You're right, and that kid has played his butt off against Ohio State every year with not a lot of help around him. To be sure, they don't have a big